Hello! In this video I want to show you how to start playing Learning Scenario 4 in the game In Force to Heaven by VUCA Simulations. Scenario 4 is a learning scenario which comes after 3 scenarios that use the special learning rulebook. The fourth scenario is kind of middle ground between scenarios that do not use most of the rules and scenarios that use full set of rules from the rulebook. But still, some parts of the rulebook are not used in this scenario. So to start playing scenario 4, let's open the module and the learning scenario 4, which is called the corridor. Here it is in the Vassal module. Of course, everything is set and ready to play. In the physical copy, we are going to have special setup displays for every scenario, which will show you where to put counters on the map, on the tracks, and how to set up everything, as well as how to manage reinforcements for both sides. But in this video, I want to show you how to use various components like flowcharts, player rates, and abilities charts in various in not only this scenario, but also in other various scenarios. So first, of course, you will need your rulebook for reference, detailed reference of every rule. But without using the rulebook, let's open first the scenario book. And let's talk a little about what is the layout of scenario card. So here we have, I'm going to use a corrected chart for the scenario number 4. Here is the rule book, and I want to show you also the scenario book, because I want to show you what is the layout of scenarios, of informations about scenarios. So on the top, we're going to have trait like the first one is the learning scenario, which means that this scenario is not using the whole set of rules. Next, in the physical copy, we're not going to use the main map. We're going to use scenario map, special scenario map sheet. Gameplay should take around 3 hours. Important for the fluent gameplay. If you already know the rules, you would need to add 1 or 2 hours in the learning process. We have 21 counters in this scenario. It is a German advance, which means that this scenario is going to be mainly focused on German movements. There are scenarios like Clash and Polish advance, so each side will get some scenarios where the side is, for example, Polish, is the initiative side. And the last trait, which is only a placeholder in this case, tells us that this scenario has some solo guidelines and multiplayer guidelines for more than 2 players. Then we have information about learning objective, some historical flavor text, and then we have 2 sections that are called specific rules and scenario special rules. First scenario special rules are always divided into 8 sections. If we open the main scenario book, no matter which scenario we pick, we always have those 8 sections. If you learn it once, you will be familiar with this in all other scenarios, because those points focus on important parts of the scenario that might change depending from the scenario. So we have first initiative, then preservation. Initiative means who is going to have, it's like a reminder, who's going to have initiative in this scenario and play the first cheat of the day. Then preservation rules for both players. In this case, no cheat can be preserved by the German player. This limitation balances the German option to pick any activation in smaller scenarios. In other small scenarios, it is changed. Then we have some activations to the activations cheats. We have Luftwaffe, which is not used in this scenario, Bomber Brigade, which is not used in this scenario, Morale, which is also not used in this scenario, then information how the Plan West cheat is used, and it could be used in different ways depending from the scenario, and additional special rules. From those, the most important is point A, scenario SOP, which we have right here. What does it mean? It means exactly that the larger scenarios, and most of all the campaign scenario, use the main sequence of play. Of course, it's going to be a separate sheet in the physical copy, but this sequence of play is very large. It is large not because it is that complex. It is large because it contains many informations that do not demand that don't demand looking over the rulebook. For example, we have everywhere links, paragraph links. We have some rules even already in the sequence of play, like information about weather. We don't have to open the rulebook. We know that we may have to make a roll, and there are effects of weather, stuff like this. But for example, we have Luftwaffe phase, and then radio broadcast, Danzig Bay, Warsaw reconstruction phase. None of this take place in this scenario. So to ease mostly the learning process, those phases are cut out from the scenario SOP. Moreover, some special rules are already implemented, like for example, numbers of replacements that are calculated according to main rules, but you don't have to look for this in the rulebook because you have laid out that the Polish player gets 1 and the German player gets 2. It is all according to the rules, but you don't have to check this in the rulebook. It's a way to help player get into the scenario without wasting a lot of time of seeking and looking on the pages of the rulebook. Of course, for more detail, it is always advised to do so. And then we have victory conditions. And the one part that I have skipped at the beginning is the part specific rules, which takes place only in a few scenarios, mostly in learning scenarios. This tells us that specifically for this scenario, we are not going to use sections 12, 13 to 17. And what is the learning objective? It doesn't change rules because scenario special rules is something that changes the main rules, and it's always good to take 5 to get a little read and be sure what rules are changed. But in case of specific rules, it might say like in this case what is not used in this scenario. And the last part are the victory conditions. Victory conditions might be a little complicated sometimes, so it's always as well good way to take a deeper read into this, but it is there to keep the historical accuracy on the very high level in every single scenario. So in scenario 4, as I suppose whoever is watching this video is about to play this scenario 4, let's first analyze what are the victory conditions of those scenarios. And let's start from the bottom. Only the German player scores victory points. And from the bottom, why is this set this way? Because those two sections are coming into play in the middle of the scenario, and the last part is at the end of the scenario. So it's like this is the main goal, but it doesn't come before those two sections. This is why I place them in this particular order. German player wins if at the end of turn 4 the German side accumulated at least 5 victory points. So the German player shoots for 5 victory points. First, at the end of the scenario, if the German player occupies Bydgoszcz, which is right here, in the vassal module there are special VP markers. I don't know yet if those markers are going to be in the physical copy. I hope yes. We're gonna look how this works, if it is possible. Then one victory point if at least 2 units of German 19th Corps or 10th Panzer Division end up scenario in the Eastern Prussia, so they have to cut through the map, through this section and get into Prussia in 4 turns. And if in this ferry there is a German pontoon bridge. So if you can see, the main focus is to strike this way, get to Eastern Prussia and cross Wisła River at this point. If we take at the larger picture, we see that Wisła goes up to Warsaw, so it basically divides the whole front into two parts. So in this little junction of rivers, if the German player has a pontoon bridge and is able to go this way, it will be very helpful later in the offensive straight against Warsaw. So we have those 3 points. First one, to get into Prussia, get pontoon bridge here and take Bydgoszcz. But those are only 3 victory points. Then we have only at the end of the first turn, if those 2 defensive lines are unoccupied by any Polish unit. In case of this defensive line, which goes through 3 hex sites, it means that the whole defensive line needs only 1 unit. So for example, if this unit is right here, this victory condition is achieved. And the last one is in the action phase, at any point, if the Polish player declines Plan West activation. Basically, Plan West cheat has 2 sides, and if in the campaign, if the Polish player doesn't pick the Plan West side, it would be a morale loss. And as we are not using morale in this scenario, it is translated into VP for the German player. And the second one is Polish unit destroyed in isolated stage. We have isolated stage right here, and if a unit is destroyed during the action phase, it grants 2 VPs for the German player. The main difference between destroying any units with or without isolation state is that a unit with isolation state cannot be ever rebuilt. And in case of campaign, it also takes down the Polish morale. It's like destroying a pocket. So now, getting this, so let's wrap it up. So the Polish player has to defend those spots, and the German player has to shoot for Bydgoszcz, Eastern Prussia, this ferry, those 2 defensive lines on September 1st, and trying to cut off and destroy Polish units in the isolation state. With this analyzed, let's start the gameplay. And now we're not going to get deep into the rules. This is not video which is meant to be for this. I'm just gonna show you how to use the various components. So we have information that scenario starts here. So let's do this. Check weather for the upcoming action phase. We make 1d6 roll, and we roll 1, which is overcast, which in this scenario will influence combats with morning mist for -1 DRM or -2 DRM in marsh terrain in combat. We open the time track and change weather to overcast. And here we have a little information that this weather only comes into play on 5 and 7 activations. Of course, it is all explained in detail in the rulebook. As for the vassal module, let's make a quick run through what we have to use, what do we have possible to use. So going from the left, we have bridges, which are markers to mark destroyed and intact bridges. In the physical copy, those are going to be wooden colored cubes. Then we have a time track on which everything will happen in the game. In a minute, we're gonna see how this works. We have track sheet A with the turn track and replacement tracks. This shouldn't be in this scenario. We don't use any of those parts. We don't use track sheet B at all because we don't have Morale, Warszawa or German air units. We have VP track. Then we have command displays for Polish armies. In the physical copy, those are going to be cardboard counters and they can be placed conveniently around the map. And those are placeholders for various markers. The same for the German. armies, and in this scenario we only have a 4th army. Then we have reinforcement schedule. We have regiments inventory, 2 CRTs, 1 base and 1 only for city battles. Card displays are not used, as the cards are not used at all in this scenario, according to specific rules for this scenario. We have SOP, which is not used in this scenario. And then we have something that it's worth noting, and those are player rates, abilities, and procedures quick references, and flowcharts. And we're going to focus on those mainly in this video. So let's begin. We go to action phase and perform activations using time track from 5 to 11 p.m. So here we have columns. Each column with every hour, it goes every 2 hours, is one activation. And as for the September 1st scenario, for September 1st turn, we have some special rules, which are: the first activation is always Fallweis, but in case of campaign scenario, we're going to have one additional, which is going to be Luftwaffe Ride at 4:45. We do not use this in this scenario. And on 9, we're going to have Polish response, which is marked with the special informational cheat. It means that if there is no Polish activation before 9 a.m., so it is exactly for 7 a.m. Or 9 if we don't get a Polish activation, then we take cheats from the pool as long until we get a Polish activation. If there is a Polish activation on 7 a.m., which is randomly picked from the pool always, the Polish response cheat is going to be removed from this track. So now we see that the first activation is Fallweis cheat. So what to do with this? How to use components to see what does it mean. First, let's open player aids. We have 5 player aids cards. We want to look on the first one, and here we have activation cheat chart. And here we see that the Fallweis and Fallweis is the plan activation, which uses procedure 1AA. It is only used on September 1st on 5 a.m. It creates conflicting orders of 4 and advances time. So this is the basic information that can we get from the player aid. But how to start the activation? Let's open abilities and then flowcharts. So in the procedures quick reference, we see that 1AA, which is Fallweis, has the procedure that we can follow step by step. 1A is for plan activations in move stance, and 1B is for plan activations in combat stance. We have information that this cheat activates all units on the map, and in case of Fallweis, we cannot conduct any combat. So it is only a movement activation. Let's check if on the army command display we have a movement stance. Yes, we have. And the first step is we check conflicting orders. We have none right now. Conflicting orders will occur if on the time track ahead of the current time marker there's any activation cheat that activated such army. It is important for army activations. So for example, if we had this Fallweis right here and we would activate at 7 a.m. and there would be a German activation and the Fallweis activated all units on the map, it will create 1, 2, 3 value of conflicting orders for this activation. Conflicting orders is checked at the beginning of activation because it reduces HQ ranges. For the German, at the beginning of the game, for the German player, it doesn't really change anything because ranges, army HQ ranges are on 12, but it would have a great difference for Polish HQs, which have only 8. In this case, it has 8, which is prolonged by 3 by the airbase, for which, by the way, we have a special rule right here. Basically, because air power is not used, this airbase would be destroyed automatically on September 3rd or September 2nd turn. So we checked our conflicting orders, and then we activate army units for movement, which means we activate all armies units. And then we start moving units, and we have some information right here. But instead of this, we are going to use our flowchart. We have two flowcharts, one for army activation and one for plan activation. And let's go for step by step for this activation. And by the way, this flowchart only works for the main activation units part. So after we use the flowchart, we will go back to steps E and F, move cheat 4 and advance time, and we will talk about this in a minute. So first, as it was in the procedure, activate all sides units. Then we make a stance selection for every army. In this case, it has to be move stance for the Fallweis scenario, for the Fallweis activation cheat. Then we check conflicting orders, and then in a move stance, if we had the combat stance, we would go this way, but we have a move stance, and we perform movement with each unit individually. Units marked DFR-X cannot move. DFR-X is a trait of foot units. Here we have foot infantry unit, which has DFR trait, and here we have motorized infantry unit, which does not have this trait. This means that this foot unit is limited to only 4 hexes of movement during the whole turn. Movement points are used for one specific activation, and you will see how this works in a minute. And then we have some options which can be used instead of movement. If we would go for a movement, we would go down this way, but instead of movement, we could load or unload using transport train. We don't have this right now. We could use a pioneer major river crossing. We don't have major rivers right now, and we don't want to cross any. We could detach one regiment, and we have two options: marching detachment or deployment. We don't use any of those options, so we go to the movement step. First, we check for bridge repairs. If any unit would start activation, movement activation, next to destroyed bridge, the repair check could be made. It doesn't apply right now, and it is before any movements because this step is before any movement. We have to check this step before we could actually move. And then we have two options: foot units and mobile units. For foot units, there is a reminder that we use DFR for every crossed hex. And we have 3 things that we have to remember during the movement regarding foot and mobile units, and those are cavalry ZOCs. Cavalry can react in the enemy movement. EZOCs, that every unit besides armored units has to stop when entering EZOC. And bridge distraction, which is mandatory if a German unit enters a hex that is adjacent to a bridge distraction check is mandatory to be made. So let's do this. Let's start with this Netze brigade, which has 4 movement points and 3 DFR. Let's open the player aid, and here we will have movement sequence. And let's quickly go step by step. First, we check conflicting orders again, and this is here to make sure that this unit is in command range. Out of command range units can be activated activated, but there are some rules regarding this. We're not going to stop to check this right now. Then we perform movement, and we go to the step that we always stop in EZOC, but we have some steps also in a way, and there are some additional reminders besides the flowchart, because the flowchart the flowchart reminds about those 3 important things. But we have something additional right here. We have cavalry right, daily foot range, bridge distraction, and bridge repair. Those are reminders from the flowchart. And we have one more thing that we have to take into account, which is less important than those trees, and this is why I didn't put it into the flowchart. And those are army operational areas. Basically, units cannot enter other armies, other friendly armies areas. And for the movement, we see, and now this is the classic approach, we check terrain effects chart and use movement points according to the chart. So we're going to move along the road. Road costs 1. There is no partial movement costs in this game. Instead, clear terrain costs 2 and road costs 1. The cost and road negates effects other negates other terrain effects for MP costs, besides entering Polish town for the first time, which is right here. We have German +1. So we move 1, 2, and we have road to town is 1 and +1 for first entry to the Polish town, which will be marked with the control marker for the future. So we moved with 4 movement points, we have none left, and we traveled 3 hexes, which means that we introduce our DFR marker and mark it with X. This means that the unit is now exhausted and will not be able to move any hex during the remainder of the turn. By the way, important disclaimer, some of those components are still playtest. They are going to slightly change. Like for example, on this marker, it will be only X, and in the older version we have no remaining DFR words to signify that DFR is used. But the main content and rules are not going to change anymore at this point. And what do we have here? We have a breach, and we have to make mandatory distraction test. Let's open player 8 on page 4, and here we have a breach table. In the physical copy, we are going to have a handy little card with the same table to keep it around the map. And in case of orange breach, it is blown up when the German unit is adjacent, and the blow up roll with 1d6 is 4+. We have a 2, which means the breach is intact and it becomes German controlled. In the physical copy, it's going to be white cube. Right here we have a little different white cube with the German cross. Let's continue with movements of other units. 15th Division. Clear terrain is 2, so we move 1, 2, 3, 4. We traveled 2 hexes, so we mark DFR 2, which means this unit will be able to travel 1 more hex. 1, 2, 3, 4 for this unit. We traveled 2 hexes. This unit in the woods will pay 3 movement, so we paid 3, we cannot move anymore because railroad costs 2. We moved 1 hex. And for mobile units, we don't track DFR. In case of armored unit, we have this little symbol which signifies that that armored unit do not have to stop in enemy zone of control. So let's move with this unit. In town, without a road, we have 2, but +1 for the first entry. So that's 1, 2, 3. And let's move this way. 3 and 4 for entering enemy zone of control. We have this right here. And we have 1 movement point, so we wouldn't have to end our movement, but we don't have sufficient movement points. We could go back to Sempulno, which makes no sense, of course. But we would be able to detach spearhead. Let's open the flowchart and see for the mobile units. There's option to detach spearhead. An armored unit can detach a spearhead on an adjacent hex using 1 MP in clear or road or 2 MP in order terrain. We have clear terrain right here, so we can, for the 1 last remaining point, detach a spearhead to this hex. And this unit activation will be done. Second motorized division will go 1, 2, and 3, 4, and this unit will not move. But we cannot attack in this activation. So let's go with another activation. Maybe we will see some combat in a minute. But first let's go back to, by the way, we have right here abilities reference, and we could see all of those abilities of units right here. So we had infantry units, which were also foot units, and we have this reminder that they don't advance immediately after combat, limited by DFR, stop when entering EZOC, divisions can detach regiments, and stuff like this. Just remember that this is right here. We have imported combat rules to remember, foot, mobile, infantry, cavalry, armored units, abilities, tank battalions, which are not used in this scenario, army front HQs, and motorized corps HQs. By the way, those red boxes are corrections that are still to be added to the final version. And on the second card we have group HQs, armored trains, transport trains, and some important rules that are easy to forget. I'm not going to read those. If you're gonna start to play, you can check those. And there's a empty field, and here are going to be added some few markers, abilities as a reminder. So going back to our procedures quick reference, we are moving, and because we don't have anything else in the flowchart that we can do, we move cheat 4, which stands for moving cheat on the activation track 1, 2, 3, 4 ahead of the current time. Also, those little marks on activation cheats are also right here in abilities chart, which remind us what they mean. So for example, a little clock means that we advance time, arrows signify conflicting orders, how many spaces on the time track the cheat will be moved. So here we have 4 arrows, and it goes along with the move cheat 4 rule. We have a postpone option for some cheats, double-sided marker, moral loss, and the Polish tactical initiative. We will not get into those right now. As I said, this video is meant to show you where to find various things. And then we advance time. Let's go back to the time track. We have 7 o'clock. On 7, we always go with the random activation. But let's get one step back, because there is also a flowchart for this action, and it is on player 8, card 1, which is right here, the action sequence. So let's analyze this. Backtracking, we had 500 initiative activation. In case of this scenario, we had a Fallweis activation. Then we went to action, we have some small reminders. Then we got to the cheat advance on the time track and time advance. A check word means that it might not happen in case for markers that do not generate conflicting orders or do not advance time. Then we advance time, and then it is not 11 p.m. so we do not proceed to phase 3A. We go back up, and then we have a mark if it is a 7 a.m. It is. In this case, we have a random activation from the pool. If it wouldn't be a 7 a.m., we would go back to B, and first German player would be able to play postponed or preserved activation. If declined, then the Polish player, and if declined, only then we would go with the random activation. So let's take random activation from the pool, but instead of playing this cheat that we got, I am going to go for the German army activation to show you how the army activation works and how it is different from the plan activation. We would have... let's stop for a second with this one. No activation. Let's see. our quick reference. Do nothing, advance time. Ha, nice, right? Well, these cheats do not take place and are not used in any other larger scenarios. And this time track and the smaller scenarios are always trying to model a situation where the whole war is not happening only in this spot, but it happens all along the whole country front. So in the larger scenario, we would now have some activation like Luftwaffe, Heeresgruppe Nord, or activate some army that is not part of this scenario. And naturally, this way, the time track would advance without any significant action on this place. And this way, in the scenarios, all of the cheats that would not take part in this scenario are replaced with no activation cheat. Like for example, in this scenario, let's see the list of cheats. We wouldn't have Heeresgruppe Süd cheat, those three motorized corps cheats, Luftwaffe cheat, Heppner Hoth cheat, or for example a Polish Navy cheat. And all of those cheats are replaced in the pool with no activation cheats. So number of activation cheats in the pool is always similar, not the same, but the similar. But those cheats that wouldn't take part in this part of the front are replaced with no activation cheats. Of course, if it is all pre-prepared in the Vassal module, in case of physical copy, we're going to use scenario display sheets. Let's look for the German. Oh, here we have it. Let's say that we got this sheet. So we advanced time, and this is going to be 700 activation. We have a little 2 arrows marker, which means that this cheat has two sides to it. We could use Heeresgruppe Süd, which, as we remember from the special scenario rules, Heeresgruppe Süd is treated as no activation, and each side of the Heeresgruppe cheat can be played only once per turn. So we don't want to pick no activation, we want to do some actions, so we're going to pick Heeresgruppe Nord. Secondly, Heeresgruppe Nord cheat would activate either Third Army, which is right here out of this scenario, or the Fourth Army. And to model this effect, we have this change, that if we pick Heeresgruppe Nord, we need to make a die roll. In case of 1 or 2, we would get no activation because we activated the Third Army, which is out of this map. On 3-6, we activate our Fourth Army. Let's make a roll. Ha! 1. Right. Let's make a roll again. 6. Okay, let's pretend that this is our roll, and we activate now Fourth Army. Let's open our abilities chart. And this is activation 1C. How do I know this? Besides looking for a counter depiction, I know this because it is right here. It is procedure 1C. So in 1C, we pick, in case of Heeresgruppe Nord, Third and Fourth Army. We have this established by special scenario rules. And then we go again to checking conflicting orders. Do we have them? Yes, we do. We activated Fourth Army with the Fallweis activation. So conflicting orders do apply. 1, 2, 3. Value of these conflicting orders is 3. We reduce HQ range by 3, which doesn't matter really right now, because now range of this army instead of 12 will be 9, and we have a lot of range still. But it will pose a problem, of course, when the German units go deep into the Polish territory. By the way, this range modification does not apply for motorized corps HQs, which will be updated on the counter with a little outline on the range. And by the way, if we want to get information about those, because we have basically 3 types of ranges, we have a table for this, which is on the card number 5, which is right here. We have HQ types, And we have types of HQs: Army, Front, SGO, Group, Group Corps, and Motorized Corps, and Special HQs. And we have information what types of ranges we have. In case of Army activation, it is an ACR, which stands for Army Command Range. And we get information how and when this HQ move. It looks like a lot, but when you of course start playing it, or if you use all of those movements once and all of those command ranges, it should all be easy to find and to implement. In case of Motorized Corps HQ, which is right here, we use Motorized Corps command range, MCCR, and it moves only in Motorized Corps activation. Army can move only in special phase of the SOP besides the action phase. And in case of ACR, it is modified by conflicting orders, air bases, or logistics damage. It doesn't extend Army command ranges of other units, and it commands only Army units. In case of MCCR, which stands for Motorized Corps Command Range, it is not modified by conflicting orders or air bases or logistics damage. It does extend ACR. What does it mean? It means that if this core was right here, and now we have conflicting orders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's put it right here. If this HQ is in range of Army command range, it would extend further Army command of this HQ further by 4. This is what it means. And it commands units only of such group or corps, which means that if, for example, this corps would extend the command range further, it would extend this command range only for its own core unit, but not the core, core C-O-R-E units. So this unit would be still in command range, this one would be not in command range. Let's reset this. Okay, with this established, let's go back to our procedure. We activate subordinated units, which means we activate all 4th Army unit and 19th Corps unit. How do I know that? Because I have command marker in the 4th Army command display, which means that 19th Corps units are part of the 4th Army at this moment. And then we can deploy Army artillery, which we have undeployed still. This is this unit. And we then mark foot units with planned attack markers, and we go to movement segment, then combat segment. And here we have very important difference between plan and Army activation. If we open flowchart, we will see and understand that when we picked a stance for an army, all units of the army would either use a movement stance or combat stance. In combat stance, they cannot move at all. In movement stance, foot units cannot attack at all, and mobile units can attack after movement or without a movement. So mobile units can always attack. But this is one stance for all of the units of such an army. In case of army activation, every unit can pick if it wants to move, if it wants to attack, and we have first movement segment and then combat segment. Let's quickly run through this flowchart. Reminder of out of command. What is the effect of out of command? Heres Group and Nord. We have information that it can be preserved before the turn. It activates one army. We activate all units of army, including out of command units and their subordinate groups and corps. We have here information that if Polish player fails to use coordination, morale would drop by 1. And then we go with this arrow to again check conflicting orders. And here, each activated unit can independently perform movement or combat. This differs from plan activation. Then we go to foot infantry attack plans. Basically, any foot unit would be able to attack or move. They have no option to attack after movement. And before any move is taken by any unit on the map, if we would have, for example, this situation, if this unit wants to move and this unit wants to attack, first we would have to mark this unit with the planned attack marker, pointing which hex it will attack after all movements. No mobile unit uses a planned attack marker. And then, according to flowchart, we have two branches. First, similar options as on the plan flowchart. We could attack with pioneers through the major river crossing or try to cross major river with pioneers. We could detach regiment, again, marching or deployment. And we have option to deploy army artillery. We will do this. We have bridge repair. If this unit wouldn't be able, if it wasn't marked with DFR X, thus if it would be able to move, and this bridge was destroyed, we would check repair if this bridge is repaired. It is checked with the same table. We simply roll a die and see if this bridge is rebuilt. In case of if it would be a Polish repair, we would simply remove the cube to signify that this bridge is again Polish controlled. If it would be a German repair, we would mark it with the white cube. And then we have almost the same information like it was on the plan flowchart, but all in one place. So now let's see what we would do in case of an attack. Let's do attack of 20th Division against this Chojnice. We are not going to... I think with this last attack I'm going to end this video because I don't want it to extend into multiple hours like a gameplay video. Again, I want to show you what to use and when it is needed. So let's say we finished all of our movements. We go to the combat segment. Again, I know this from the procedure. First, we move all units, then we make our attacks. And to perform attack, I'm going to use my player sequence, player 8, and here we have combat sequence on page 3. First we attack declaration. We have attack declaration, so we point which battle will we go with now. Then we check for strength ratio. It is 2:1. Let's open CRT and mark this with our combat template, aligning the combat template with 3 and 4 combat results. Then we can assign support. But first we can check, before this, we can check what DRMs are going to be in the battle to see what support might we need to get this battle go as we want. Let's open again player 8. We have combat modifier table. Any column shifts are inflicted only by army artillery or in case of failed coordination in multi-unit attack. So we have TAC, we have a terrain, which is a town, which gets us -1, so we move the combat template 1 to the 1 up. So as we can see now 3, 4 are right here, so we don't have to calculate before the roll. With this combat template we'll everything see right away. Then let's see if we have conflicting orders. Yes, we do, and as we remember from the time track, it was a value of 3, so we got -3 for this attack. 1, 2, 3. And we, of course, can go beyond the combat, the CRT. Then we don't have failed coordination, night attack, no, lone unit attacking in EZOC. This means that if there would be another unit in EZOC that wouldn't be suppressed by any other friendly unit, it would be a -1. Doesn't apply right here. And we have overcast weather. And we have a 7 AM, which is another -1. If we would attack marsh terrain, it would be -2. Then we get the unit state DRMs. Disruption, no. Isolation, no. Out of command, no. Shock, no. Size difference, it applies because larger unit, a division size unit, attacks a regiment size unit, which is +1 for the German attack. We don't have detached marker. It would apply if we would attack this unit because there is a detachment marker. It is not in rail transport. Then we have some mobile units. No recon. It would apply if we would have moved and have insufficient movement points. So for example, if we used all of our movement points or have only one left, it would be insufficient to do the recon, thus it would create -2 DRM. But it doesn't apply now because this unit wasn't moving. We have a special marker for this, which is right here. No recon. We would, in the course of movement, we would mark this unit with this marker. And we have out of supply for German motorized corps, which is signified by this little supply marker, which stands only for motorized corps units. It asks if this unit is in command range of the motorized corps HQ. It is. Thus, this doesn't apply, and the rest of those are only for armored units. Then we have support. We don't use Stuka bombers in this scenario. We don't have Schleswig-Holstein. We don't have armored train. It is only for the Polish player. But we can use divisional artillery. So, first the attacker, then the defender assigns support. We're going to use maximum of 2 shots of our army artillery, which would make 2 column shifts, and we're going to use from army command display 2 shots of divisional artillery, which will give us +2. And we make a die roll. A combat die roll, we have a little reminder right here. How does it work? We roll 2 dice, and if we have we don't add them, we only pick one die of those. If 3 or 4 is any of those die, then we are going to have this result, like here, 1 or 3 is a 3. If you have 3 or 4 on both, we're going to get a primary die. In case of vassal module, I always use the first die as the primary. If no 3 or 4 on both, then the primary die, and in case of double roll, we have some special double roll effects, which I'm also not going to get deep into right now. We make a roll 3, 2, we have 3, which means it is a 3, it would be a defender retreat. So we get like this. Then we make mandatory breach destruction check. Gray is intact, and it is sufficient to mark this hex site intact. So this is how we use our combat. Actually, I didn't use the combat sequence, so let's go through this again. We assign support. We made the combat roll. If it would be a multi-unit attack, we would make a coordination check. We did all of our DRM column shifts. We applied our combat losses, retreat, advance after combat, and if applicable, not in this scenario, legendary battles. Right here we have the same CRTs and we have our combat results. So in case of DR, we had a defender can try to hold the line or retreat 2 hexes. Step loss if the last hex of retreat is unoccupied, clear or EZOC, and attacker uses tactical air support. We would have to make additional roll. Insufficient DFR. We have a paragraph link, and attacker must advance or try to hold advance. So I'm not going to go in detail through this because this is for the other material, the other video. And the last thing I want to do for you now, is to get through all of the components that are on the playwrights. I hope with these actions that we made on the map, you already see what to use and when, how to use our procedures quick reference, how to use abilities reference, how to use our flowchart, and how to use some parts of the playwright. And as the last step of this video, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, we are going to go through all of the tables and what are they mean in playwrights. Here we have shortened sequence of play, just as a handy reference. Then we have action sequence used when we finish our activation and are about to get a new activation on the time track. Then we have activation cheat chart for every cheat. Then we have 3 tables that are used when called upon by the sequence of play for match losses, bay mine laying, and bomber brigade availability. On page 2 we have a movement sequence, terrain effects chart, cavalry rate if we want to check if the cavalry rate is used, Pioneer River attack when called upon by the procedure of Pioneer River attack. On page 3 we have a combat sequence, hold withdrawal table, which is called upon by the combat sequence, like right here. It was right, where was it? It was right here. Defender can try to hold the line. Then we made another die roll and check if the combat effect has been changed. Here we have some additional information about combat rolls and support. What does it mean? What can it change? On page 4 we have combat modifiers table. Then we have stuff regarding morale, legendary, the battle, and morale table. A reminder how the combat roll works. Retreat losses, which shows us how are retreat losses implemented in different combat situations. A bridge table, meeting engagement, when a unit tries to make a move without sufficient movement points. Here we have hold advance check calculation and supply calculations. What is the line of communication? What is the line of supply? What is the path? What it is used for? What is the length? And what are supply sources for both sides? And on page 5 we have the whole Luftflotte air raid table, Luftflotte flowchart, bomber brigade air missions, and HQ types that we looked into already. So it looks like a lot, but only during the learning process of this game. But it is all there to get you by hand through many parts of this game. And the main point of this game, the learning process of this game, that there is so much of those of this stuff here and there, because most of those stuff are procedures, so you don't have to decipher the rulebook, simply like in the very large sequence of play. Just go step by step, do this, read this paragraph, do this, read this paragraph, and go on, and it goes on. So thank you for watching. This video is of course longer than I expected, but I hope it will prove helpful if you want to try to play this scenario.